a healthy church is always going to keep us mindful of the greater mission.
Hey, welcome to Ascend the Hill with Jeremy Austill. I'm Jonathan. This is Pastor Jeremy. How's it going?
I'm doing really well today. I notice you are wearing the Cornerstone Nashville Performance long sleeve t-shirt.
Just for our series alignment. You know,
Yes.
we talked on Sunday about getting on team, and you know what? Just rep the colors. There you go.
You are wearing the team colors,
my
and that
gosh.
looks like one of those. Yep, it's like one of those.
It is, yeah. We need to get more of them.
What do you call them? I don't know. It's like that athletic
moisture wicking fabric.
There it
something
is.
like that.
Whoa, yeah.
Hey, there you go.
Well, that's what it is. Well, if you sweat, you're good to go today.
Yep. Oh my gosh. It was a good weekend though. And
I threw you off with that, didn't I?
No, it's all good. It was a good weekend. Did you do anything special this weekend? Was there anything fun that happened this weekend?
Yeah, had a really good weekend. The kids both completed their first week of the school year.
Boo.
So I know, right?
No school.
Neelan did her first week in middle school, 6th grade.
Oh, man.
Kingston finished his week of 8th grade. So me and her went, or she and probably she and I. Grammar police are out there. Neeland and I went to First Watch, had chocolate chip pancakes and bacon, and oh man, they have this drink there that is an iced mocha mint coffee drink thing. I don't drink iced coffee.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the thought of putting coffee with ice just seems weird. But there was a side benefit to it. My coffee was already cold, so I didn't have to worry about it getting cold. It was supposed to be. And it was delicious. So I had that. So we did that, and then we went to Hobby Lobby.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and just walked around Hobby Lobby and talked about Christmas, because they're starting to bring the Christmas stuff out and all of the Thanksgiving things, fall decorations and what. So we walked through there, and then Sunday evening, Kingston and I did our hang. Yeah. So we went to Casa Vieja here in Hendersonville, which I told him, hey, let's go somewhere that your sister doesn't really like, maybe something that you don't go to a whole lot. So we both agreed there. Ate as many chips and salsa as I could eat. He doesn't, because he's got braces, so he can't eat the harder chips there.
Oh, that's a bummer.
But I mean, he slammed some soft tacos and rice and beans. So we did that. And then we walked Walmart. Neelan got to walk Hobby Lobby. Me and him walked Walmart, looked at Legos, looked at video games, all that good stuff.
That's fun.
And then we got shakes at Steak and Shake. Just Oreo shakes there. And so that was our day. And then yesterday was a day off, played a little golf. Just kind of enjoyed the day. Did something active. So grilled steaks last night. 3 New York strips. So it was good.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I went golfing yesterday morning.
Okay.
7 a.m. was my tee time.
All right.
Because the last time I was there last week was my first time in a long time, and I felt like I was always either catching up to someone because I was I was catching up to groups, or there were groups behind me.
Are you playing by yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I went, and I just felt rushed. And so this last time I was like, I'm going the first tee time.
Yeah.
And it was perfect because rain had already gone through.
Yeah.
And I could just take my time. No one was around me. It was great.
I like playing by myself.
Yeah.
It's just something about going at your own pace, just kind of being in your own thoughts. I enjoy playing around the golf by myself.
I did horrible, but it was great to be,
I played terrible too
Yeah.
yesterday. I mean, I feel like I 3-putted every single green there was. I know there's very few people that will know this reference, but there was a baseball player named Chuck Knobloch back in the 90s, and he played second base, and he got a version of the yips. He could not throw the ball from second to first base. It got so bad in his head, he would throw errant throws, and I felt like that yesterday putting. I was Chuck Knobloch on the green. I cannot hit a putt. It's in my head. Anyway, whatever. I had a good day. It was a good day.
Yeah, no, that's funny. And you mentioned Christmas too. There's nothing like
can't wait. By the way,
there's nothing like Hobby Lobby Christmas sales.
Oh,
50% off, almost all the time.
Everything's always 50% off in Hobby Lobby.
It's probably a ruse, but
seems
I'm a sucker for it.
Seems a little sus, but
yeah, we actually have a slowly our guest bedroom is slowly turning into like a Grinch themed like Christmas room.
Okay.
And so every year we'll go to Hobby Lobby and get like one Grinch item because they have like a bunch
Nice.
of Grinch stuff.
Yeah.
It's just fun, you know.
That is fun.
Well, it was a good weekend, and you mentioned right before we started, but how many people were interested, went to our welcome lunch, which is like our onboarding. If you're a guest, you want to know more about the church, want to become a member, it's a lunch for them. How many people went through that?
I'm not sure of how many people were in the room. There were a lot of families, a lot of children that we helped get into the kids area because it is a free childcare, free meal moment in our church. I don't know how many were in the room, but I know that we added 37 new members on Sunday.
Hey,
pretty cool.
Put the hand claps in the comment section. That's great because it was the first welcome lunch back from the summer break.
Right. Yeah, we took July off.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I was just having a conversation with somebody that serves in the welcome lunch and helps on the regular, that most of the people in the room had been in the church less than a couple of months. And so this was a collection of people that the Lord has sent our way very recently.
Yeah.
Just very encouraging to see that many people saying, I want to more deeply engage with the church. I want to make this my church. I want to find a place to serve, to share, as we talked about Sunday. There was a lot of juice in that room, a lot of energy, a lot of life, and it was packed. I don't know that we could have fit many more people in that room.
That's awesome, and it went well with the start of the series too, because the series that we're going through in August is alignment.
Yep.
And what was give a brief background on what this first sermon was about.
Well, the first sermon was focused on our spiritual family and our relationship to our church, in essence, taking a look at Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through 47, when the church begins, also looking at some of Jesus's words in John chapter 15. But the premise of the whole series is that the Lord does indeed want to favor you. He wants to bless you. He wants to pour out His goodness and benefits on your life. But a lot of times we're over here doing our thing and we're hoping that we'll be blessed over here, or we occasionally randomly find ourselves crossing paths with something really good.
Yeah.
Whereas throughout Scripture, there are clear areas of our life that when we come into alignment with the Lord, that area He's already blessing. There are already promises attached to that. And so a lot of this week was there is a promise of joy, which equals strength in our life and endurance in our life. And that promise of joy is attached to how well we relate and interact with and integrate with the body of Christ, the other believers around us. And so, hey, I want joy in my life. Well, I can be over here just kind of doing life and hoping I have some joy, or I can say, God's promised me joy if I will come into alignment. And so I'm going to line up with Him so that I can have supernatural joy. And I believe in general, and I said it a couple of times during the message, you can make practical or natural decisions that have biblical promise attached to them, and that practical, natural decision unlocks supernatural flow.
Yeah.
And so joy, ultimately, I believe, is a supernatural flow. It is a fruit of the Spirit. So how do I grow that fruit in my life? How do I cause that to come alive in me? So it just so happens that this week it is connected to how we relate to the body of Christ.
Yeah. And the topic of the title of the sermon was spiritual family and joining the family and why it's important to join the family. But what's a little background? What was your first serving opportunity in the church? What was your first thing that you did?
Wow, good question. I don't know that I can remember my first serving opportunity because I just grew up in church.
Right.
And so, I was a kid in VBS, and then when I was a youth, when I was a student in the youth group, we served VBS.
Oh, yeah.
Just in general, you just always were involved in doing stuff. If there was a work day, once I got into my teen years, if there was a work day at the church on a Saturday, you go and you eat some bacon and eggs with all the men, and then you do work.
Yeah.
So that was I don't recall a specific instance. More so, just that was a way of life, especially in a church. I grew up in a church of a couple hundred people.
Yeah.
Community of 8 to 12,000, depending on what era you're in that community. So small, tight knit community. Thus, a church that small, tight knit. Everybody knows each other. It's family.
Right.
Maybe there's some dysfunctional elements to any family, but this is family. This is my world. A dominant part of the relational dynamic of my life is centered on this congregation and these people. And so when it's family, if something comes up, you do it.
Right.
And so that's probably, I can't recall ever making a decision to serve.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is what we did. And part of it was because I remember serving in VBSs and doing different roles in that. And a lot of it was because this is my family. I want to be around them. If something's happening, I want to be a part of it because it's life-giving to me. These are my people. I enjoy being around them. So that's probably, it's a good question.
Yeah. Well, and even in going through that, like we talked about it you talked about in the sermon a little bit of like getting on team and serving and how you have to, you mentioned like family, good or bad kind of thing.
Yeah.
Regardless, they're still family. And was there ever a time where you kind of lost the, I guess the glimmer of being on team, and how did you kind of get that back?
No, because I mean, that's just an honest answer. Again, it was so interwoven with my life that the idea of not being engaged was foreign because this is so my world. This is my life.
Yeah.
And then I go to Bible college, and that's a different dynamic. I'm going to school 20 hours a week. I'm taking 20 hours a semester. I'm working 20, 30 hours a week. So I went to church for 3 years. I didn't necessarily serve the way I would have liked to. But then on the summers, I'd come home and serve in my church, or I went and did an internship at another church and served as the youth pastor. And then, of course, once you get out of school, we're in ministry. This is what we do. This is our life. But I do come back to society has changed so much. And again, I can't speak for everybody else's experience. And so I want to be careful to not paint with a broad brush. And say it's all society's fault, because maybe my experience was really unique. But for me, growing up and now 20 plus years of ministry, the church that I'm associated with is the dominant arena of relationship that I have. It is the place that I feel at home and I feel like I am around family. It is the people that are life-giving that I cherish and I want to be around more than other scenarios or environments. Now, I do think that has changed. Again, broad brush, I think that has changed over the last 20 to 30 years where we had church 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And you were there always, and society had kind of some boundaries and understanding that they don't infringe on those times.
Yeah.
Whereas now that's irrelevant. There's sports on Wednesday night. There's travel ball on Sunday. There's you got to be here at work for this. So that's a little different. Maybe this is nostalgic. Maybe it's romanticizing the idea of the local church a little. But, I mean, it would be my heart's desire that everybody that's a part of Cornerstone Church, this is their family. Like, this is their people. They love being around one another. They delight in the community. Now, the negative of that is you can get really insulated. You can have a little club. But that's the tension of being a follower of Jesus, because you read the epistles, and the epistles predominantly are, okay, yes, we are a witness to the world around us, but part of that witness is our relationship and our fellowship and how we handle one another. One of our greatest witnesses, one of our greatest expressions to the world of the reality of Christ is this family, this Christian family that we have.
Yeah.
And so I just have, again, maybe it's nostalgic, maybe it's a little utopian, maybe it's a little romanticized, but man, I would love for the people of Cornerstone Church to say, like, I love being around my church family. That's my family. Those are my relationships. If something's happening, I want to be a part of it because it's fun, it's life-giving. Now, I know we're a church that it's of a size and we're regional. It's not easy for everybody to get here to the building.
Right.
You know, we have people that are driving 45 minutes to an hour sometimes to get to church. And so I get that, not to mention, you know, Wednesday night service, middle of the week, Nashville traffic, people's work schedules, family schedules, that makes it tough.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of grace, mercy, understanding in me for that. But again, I want people to feel that way about their church experience. So that was a really long, I think you started out asking me if I ever wanted, thought about not serving and how did I rekindle it. I can't answer that because I've never been in that place.
Yeah.
So I went a totally different route.
No, it's all good. And I wonder if part of that is a testament to the importance of when your kids are young, being connected to a church and bringing them up in that, if that is like, if your story is kind of a byproduct of, no, your parents made an emphasis to be involved,
100%. I want for my two kids, for their closest friends to be a part of Cornerstone Church.
Yeah.
I want for my two kids, they have their school life, right?
Yeah.
They have their school experience and they're being godly. They have friends in school, but their heart, they're where they want to be, the dominant relational dynamic of their life. I want, as teenagers, I want that to be their youth ministry.
Yeah.
Because that's not a cocoon. That's not insulated. That is, I am in this relational element in my youth ministry, and it is pointing me toward Jesus. It is pointing me toward a lifelong journey of faith and following the Lord. And so certainly I want my kids there. And so the hope is that when they have that experience as a teenager, then it stays with them and through the entirety of their adulthood. Church life is at the core of who they are.
Yeah.
We do middle school service on Sundays, and even that there's a strategy to that. For me, just so anybody can hear, I remember being 12, 13 years old, and I was raised in church, but I hit a window where I did not like church. That middle school coming into teen years, and I've joked about it before. I'd wake up on Sunday morning and turn on the radio in hopes of hearing Casey Kasem's Top 40, because that would mean it was one of the rare Sundays where we weren't going to church.
Oh.
So, because if Casey Kasem had started the Top 40, we were sleeping in.
Yeah.
And that was super rare. And so we do middle school service in part to help the 12, 13-year-old bridge from their kids' church experience to the adult service experience and not lose their love for church.
Yeah.
But to get to go into an environment with our youth specialists, with people that love them and are focused on their development with their friends, and so that their love for the church continues to grow. So I think what we do in middle school is monumentally important. It's not so much the week in, week out is something dramatic going to happen. It is continuing to foster a love for their spiritual family during a time when coming into the adult service may feel like they might become a little disenchanted. Now, listen, there are people listening right now that are like, I slept under a pew. I didn't have kids' church. My mom swatted me if I snored. I get it.
Yeah.
But I get different age, different generation, I get all of that. For me, it's a really strategic decision of wanting our kids to never have their affections for their spiritual family wane.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned the topic of cocoon. And I think sometimes when people hear like make your church your spiritual family, they can feel like, well, I don't want to be caught up in the bubble.
Sure.
But is most things are their own bubble, yeah? You
Yeah.
think, like, either choose
You kind of have a
which
work
bubble you're
bubble.
choosing,
You have you have a ball team bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not as concerned about that because I do believe if you have a healthy church,
Mhm.
a healthy church is always going to keep us mindful of the greater mission
Yeah.
of spreading the good news of Jesus. And a healthy church is going to create avenues for that outlet and encouraging us to be mindful of the harvest.
Mhm.
So I'm not as concerned about that big picture.
Yeah.
Certainly with each individual, we could get comfortable over here and say, well, I've got my little world and I don't have to reach out to anybody. I get it. I I get that big time. It's
Mhm.
really, if anybody can get in a bubble, I can.
Mhm.
I work here. I show up, I sit at my desk, I write sermons, I have meetings with our
Mhm.
staff. I have to, and then on top of that, just I don't know if you've noticed because sometimes our paths don't cross. When I get to the office, I don't like to leave.
Yeah.
As in, I don't like to, I don't like to go to lunch.
Right.
I don't like to run an errand or I just need to get out of here. That's not me. I hunker down.
Mhm.
So it would be really easy for me to get in a bubble.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, as a church, as a person, I'm mindful that the good news has to go forth. And so I'm not as concerned about it. I'm more concerned about the benefits of being intertwined with the body of Christ and
Yeah.
what that does for you spiritually. And I think a healthy local church that has incredible relational dynamics is a more potent force in evangelism.
Mhm.
Number one, because we spur one another on, we encourage one another, we co-labor together. And then number two, we are picturesque of God's kingdom.
Yeah.
This people who love each other really well in a way that the world doesn't love each other.
Yeah. And there is kind of like I think you mentioned it a little bit in the sermon, but there is quite a difference between how church operates now and how when they're talking in Acts about being devoted to each other and being
Yeah.
connected, like they're talking from a totally different paradigm, right?
Oh, very.
Yeah.
I didn't talk about it in the message, but it does need to be said. Society was different. It was
Mhm.
so much more communal. For instance, communal to the degree that in Jewish culture, if a stranger, comes in from out of town and asks to stay, there was a biblical command to hospitality. There was a deeply rooted cultural demand to be hospitable to the stranger, to out of towners, to let them stay with you, to let them sit at your table and share a meal. So you had a society and a culture that sharing meals, I mean, it was so ingrained in them that to not do that
Mhm.
would have been sin.
Yeah.
That's how they would have seen it. So, yes, very different cultural context to our own cultural context now, which now if somebody comes in from out of town, I'm not letting them stay with me. That's wild.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think to do that, right?
Mhm.
I mean, somebody's in our neighborhood and they ring the doorbell. I'm thinking, man, they want to talk about my roof.
Yeah.
Everybody pretend you're not here.
Yeah.
Just being real transparent. Society has changed. So I think we have to read the book of Acts with that understanding that society has changed, but let me not let myself completely off the hook because
Mhm.
society is different. So what are ways that I can fellowship? Which is, again, that word koinonia, which is to participate,
Mhm.
to partner, to partake, to have relational intimacy. What are some ways that I can share?
Yeah.
I am the call to be devoted to fellowship and devoted to sharing are still very much alive and well. It obviously just looks different now than it did.
Yeah. And so I guess this is probably a good time to kind of hit some of those marks of like, what are some ways that people can kind of contribute to the local church, even if they're listening, they don't go to Cornerstone, which is great.
Yeah.
If you're at a church, like, what are some ways where it's like, I go to church, but maybe they've been feeling some of the things you've been talking about through this podcast in the sermon of, well, I don't know if I want to do this, or maybe it's not that important. Like, what are some ways people can like really step out there and connect, you know?
Well, whether you're part of Cornerstone or another local church, there's always a need for people to share.
Yeah.
And I go back to the sharing aspect. And if you listen to the sermon, you'll get a little more context to what I mean. But every person has something to offer. So the first step in sharing with the body of Christ is to identify what you have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that is going through a next steps like we have here at Cornerstone, where there is a week that's spent on discovering your spiritual gifts, discovering what it is you have to share, or doing some self-analysis or having some conversation with spiritual leaders in your life that can affirm, yeah, this is something you have to offer. But the first step of sharing is identifying what is it that I possess that is shareable, right?
Yeah.
And once you've discovered that, once that's revealed to you, well, now you're accountable
Yeah.
to take that you have to share and actually share it. So where in the church can what you have in your possession be released for the good of others? And so for Cornerstone, we have Team Cornerstone. There are areas to serve. There are areas to minister. There are places to share. Now that sharing goes beyond, it might be your sharing is you are a part of a life group.
Mm-hmm.
And you are in relationship with a smaller collection of people in the church. And within that smaller collection, you have wisdom, you have insight, you've got some experiences, you've got some resources, you've got some talent, some skill that you might, a church our size, I don't know how I can share what I have with all these people.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get in a life group where what you have to share will be monumental for 5 to 10 people.
Yeah.
It'll be majorly significant in their lives. So find what do I have to give?
Mm-hmm.
And let me find the avenue to give it. But maybe don't think so big.
Yeah.
Let me find a little pocket. And here at Cornerstone, being on team, for instance, if you're on team in our youth ministry, if you're serving as a leader in our youth ministry, that's your church within a church.
Mm-hmm.
You're sharing in the lives of students, but you're also sharing with the other people that you're on team with. There's so much camaraderie and relational development that takes place by serving.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, the best step. What do I have? And then how can I share it? Now, another step of that is we have resources. All of us have resources.
Mm-hmm.
All of us have something pretty tangible: money, possessions, a business. We have things that we can share. And I think we should look at all of that we have to share through the lens of this belongs to God.
Yeah.
He gave it to me. It's his. How can I give some of it away?
Right.
Where do I give it? How do I give it? And so we'll talk more about financial generosity, financial sharing a little later in this series. Anyway.
No, that's great. And there are a lot of places to get involved. And it's interesting because you mentioned, like, don't necessarily look for the big thing.
Right.
And in a big church like Cornerstone, sometimes in a ministry that you're serving in a ministry that in some ways numerically is the size of a small church, And so there's like, you feel like you're not making an impact, but you are.
I don't even love talking in terms of big church, small church.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a church of a couple hundred people, but it was a big church.
Right.
It was big to me
at
that time in my life, and it was big monumentally in my life.
Yeah.
And it's been big around the world, giving to missions. And so I do want to, not correcting you, but I just want it to be heard from my mouth as the pastor of this church.
Right.
Excuse me. That I don't measure big necessarily via attendance. Like big is influence, impact. Big, we don't know.
Right.
Cornerstone, we're going to do what we're going to do, but there might be a church that has way less attendance than us on Sunday, but when we get to heaven, their impact, the scope of their impact is exponentially more than ours. And so I just, in that frame of mind, but as you said, depending on church attendance size, ultimately we all have to accept that our influence is limited, no matter how, no matter what seat you're sitting in, your direct influence has some limitations.
Right.
And so find the place where you can be a healthy, beneficial influence by sharing what you have.
Yeah. And this next Sunday, we'll be going into, it's like Next Gen Sunday. But we're going from joining a spiritual family to what is this next Sunday's topic going to be about?
Well, we are going to focus on back to school. It's Back to School Sunday. We're doing a Next Gen takeover on all our social media accounts
this
week.
Check it out.
So our kids pastors, Pastor Kelly, Pastor John Michael, Pastor Jessica, our youth pastor, Pastor Curtis, our young adults pastor, Pastor AT. You're going to see them all over Cornerstone social media this week. We just wanted to kind of paint Cornerstone younger generations for a week. And we're going to focus on being a generational church this Sunday. I very deeply believe, and I'll spend more time talking about it, that God is generational, so we must be.
Yeah. Well, look for that this Sunday. Follow us on our socials because there's going to be a lot of cool stuff this week. Already cool stuff that's come out. So make sure you're following us and make sure you're here in service on Sunday, this Wednesday. If you can't be, you can watch online. But thank you so much, Pastor Jeremy, and looking forward to week 2 of Alignment.
Awesome.